So, hi everyone. This is really exciting because this is going to be the first online module for this workshop called Discover What Drives You. When I ran this workshop in the flesh, it went for the day, but there was so much content and I was having so much fun, I could have made it longer. So, what I propose to do is I'm going to make these sessions a little bit shorter, but there's going to be more of them because if we really want to get to this journey about self-awareness, there's a lot of stuff that you have to take in. I can stand and do those Facebook Lives, which are awesome. I love doing them, get off on tangents. But then afterwards, I think, wow, what did they actually walk away with? I know I might have got you thinking, which is fantastic. I mean, people, that's where it's a start. It's about having a bit of insight into oneself and becoming quite self-aware. But a lot of the things that I am trying to achieve here is an ultimate goal of getting you to become self-aware. So hopefully I reckon this program's probably going to take a few months if you're willing to still stick with it and stay with me. And at any time you can watch them, you can come back to them. You don't have to watch them all in one hit. If you're a bit of a like Netflix and like to binge stuff, then you can wait for a while and then just watch all of them. But I would like to say thank you to all my subscribers so far on my webpage. It's been awesome. I've got a really good number already. I'm going to send you each personal emails down the track to see if you actually want to do some stuff. Probably check in a month's time and do some online stuff together just to see where you're at and see how you're going with the workbook, see what goals that you've set for you, because probably at that point of time we're probably been looking at how we can set some realistic goals and make them work. But today, so enjoy and relax, I guess, but it's going to be the first section on looking at self. So I'm just going to share my screen and bring my presentation up. And also probably just stop my video so that you can still hear me, but you don't have to look at my face up there. And we will get started straight away. So welcome again, Discover What Drives You. So please give me some feedback as well if about this module. I'm trying to think as an educator, seeing I have done a Bachelor of Education many years ago. I want you to walk away with something that you actually know, so something that's quite tangible. You can tell stories, and I've got lots of them, and people can walk away going, oh, it was a great story, but I don't know if I really got anything from that. Or, oh, Renee's entertaining, but I don't know if I got anything from it. Well, for me to do it this way is a way for you to get something from it. So, who am I? For those that don't know me, my name is Renee Vincent, and I have been studying in the field of psychology for many years now. I did do a Bachelor of Adult Education back in 2005 when I was in a role of teaching some leadership stuff, and also I got really fascinated about personal development and also my own battles with depression and anxiety. So I've always been very interested in how we think, and to this point what I have learned is that we still don't know everything, or we still don't know enough. There always is more questions that are raised than answers, and every theorist has their own idea, and of course we'll get that research to back that up, which makes me think, wow, there is a lot of theories out there. So what I propose to do is sort of offer you, I guess, some simple things, but also a range of information as well from those different theorists, and perhaps what you like and what you don't like. So I also have 4 boys from 15 down to 7, and then there's a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old in there, all boys. I have a wonderful husband who I've been married for now, it's going on to our 17th year. So that's pretty amazing. And he's very supportive of me doing things like this. I did a grad cert in psychology in 2010. I didn't go on to do my honours. It's interesting enough, I went to ACAP thinking to do my honours because they do it by interview, because you have to get like these extremely high marks just to get through to honours these days. And managing children and doing that, I wasn't hitting distinctions. It was just a credit. But when I got talking to someone out at ACAP, I started saying what I wanted to really do, and that's just getting out there and providing skills for people to be well. And she said, oh, well, we've just introduced this, Bachelor of Counselling with a coaching element to it. So I was like, wow. And I looked at that and I was fascinated with it because I like to see myself as someone that has a counselling hat, or I guess a therapeutic hat, and also a coaching hat. So in a nutshell, for me, the difference is, and there'll probably be experts out there that might say I'm wrong, but this is how I do my business as well, is that when I'm talking to someone and I can see that maybe there's some trauma still there, perhaps maybe therapy is what needs to come in play first before they're ready to be challenged, whereas it's a coach, and especially a true coach like an NLP coach, are very much about, okay, let's just get you, let's get you there, moving forward, challenge, challenge, challenge. But some people aren't necessarily ready for that. So for me, it's about wearing I call myself a therapeutic coach, finding out where people are and probably challenge people, but in a very slow and more gentle way. So that is me. I do have a paid job. I hope to move on from that in the next few years and do this full time, because this is my next chapter in life. So that is me. So why are we doing this? Well, hopefully my passion and that it says why we're doing this, but really, and if people from overseas watch this, fantastic, and they probably have the same similar stats, but in Australia, unbelievable, 1 in 2 will experience a mental illness in their lifetime. And that is only documented. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all talking to people and that something's happened for them somewhere, because life is life. There's great stuff that happens in life, and then there's some shit stuff that happens in life, and you can't escape that. That is there. But at the time, how do we deal with that, and what are the skills that we have to deal with that? So I don't think we get taught at an early age about mental health and about our emotions and about our values. And I think if we know that we have a purpose and a meaning in life, then we can handle that stuff. When you tell a kid, before they do a speech and they're suffering with anxiety and they're like, oh, I'm just so nervous, I'm so anxious, and instead of us, that's terrible you feel like that. You shouldn't feel like that. You should feel this. The language around that already is telling that kid that this is bad. Anxiety is bad, and it's not. In that situation, anxiety is perfectly normal, because remember in my last videos, I've spoken about anxiety. It's a way to push us, to get us out of the comfort zone. We need it for survival. The brain looks for 2 things. It's either the reward or the threat. It's either going in for that reward or it's going away from that threat. Now, if you look at it like, wow, I'm going to go in and have a great time at this speech, that's a reward. So you go for it. Where I know most of you are sitting there going, oh my God, that is so not me, Renee. Oh my God, I'm so scared when it comes to public speaking. And I get that. But wouldn't you like to just be that person that I've got this? I'm going to nail it. So it's really important that we have this conversation, because to me now the fear is more people are coming out and disclosing to their employees and employees and their employers. And I feel that the people on the other end aren't equipped to deal with that. So they could take the wrong type of the action. And then I think there's a fear of discrimination there. So, maybe that's another chapter down in life, but I think that's something that's coming up. So obviously way too many people kill themselves, and they're the stats in 2012, 707. And I'm sure there is probably more. It's just depending on how it's reported to the coroner in relation to how someone died as well. So look at that number 2, about 2.7 million workdays lost each year because of mental illness. Now, I would like you to take this moment just to have a think. When you felt quite anxious or a little bit under the weather, a bit depressed and blue, and you just can't handle going to work, I think they should bring mental health days in. Have you told your employer that you're having anxiety so you won't be in today? Or have you told them that you've just got a virus or, just a migraine? For me, I'm pretty fair income, and I'll just say it, but that has gotten me into quite a bit, not a strife at work, but, people don't know how to necessarily manage that. But, we're not necessarily well equipped, so most of us won't disclose that. So, and that's, I'm not saying go into your employer and tell them everything and be open and honest, because I get it too. Sometimes I need to keep my mouth shut, but that who I am is very open about that as well. So the thing is that we lose a lot of people to mental health and mental, illness in the workplace, to sick days. And I think the biggest part is not isolation when people are suffering. It's actually being supportive and keeping them within, with the workplace as well. So what is in it for me? That's what you're asking. Well, what you will discover is self. Wow, where do you start with that? I mean, I ask myself those questions every day about self. But I just want you just to have that moment. Just think about it when you do think of self. What comes to mind? What is coming to you? Do you think about self? There are so many people that have so limited insight about themselves, about the way they behave, the way they use a certain language, and how that may impact on others. I know we might be talking a little bit about emotional intelligence there, but that's a start, isn't it? It's becoming that, becoming self-aware. So for you to take this session is the step of becoming self-aware, because you want to learn a bit more about yourself. I think there are so many therapists and psychologists and out there to help people once they've hit that, point, I wouldn't say of no return, but they actually need some assistance because they're not functioning in life. But what about people that are just, I don't know, what else is going on for me? How can I manage my stress a bit better? How can I have healthier relationships with my partner and my kids or other family members? I just feel this overwhelmed sadness. How do I, get back? And some people just feel lost, at the crossroads. Because when you think about it, if you're someone listening to this who's in their 30s or 40s or a little bit older, everything sort of happened in your life. And when I say happened, you've probably got that job that you're quite settled in, you're competent in. The fear of doing something different scares you, so you're just going to stay where you're at. You've got this routine. You probably get up this morning, the same time in the morning, have a shower, have the same routine. You probably put your shoes on the same way each day. We get sort of in this routine and we develop these pathways in our brains, these neuro pathways. Then it becomes a habit, and that's why habits are usually hard to break, because actually we have to stop that pathway and create a new one. And there's a lot of research to show by creating those new pathways, you'll actually, ward off and increase the activity in the brain and maybe fight off some of those other terrible brain diseases that a lot of people, as we get a little bit older. So if I sort of challenged you and said, try and do something different tomorrow, probably, I'm not saying wear different coloured socks, but perhaps you could, put your shoes, instead of putting your left one on, you do it that often, you probably don't even know which foot you put on first. But think about it next time, right? Think, and then go, I'll do it the other way. Or brush your teeth, instead of using your right hand, use your left hand. Just these little things is all about just noticing. And as you know, I've been doing many videos on mindfulness, and mindfulness is really a big part about noticing. Just stopping and noticing. So you learn about values, your bucket, and emotions. So the reason why I have those 4 main areas or topics, as we like to say, is that I talked about them on the workshop and they were great fun. However, this is an opportunity where I can really get more into them and give you more content in those areas, especially around values. I love values. They're just, we don't talk about them enough. And then that'll lead into when I do ACT therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, another program that I would do. So you can become self-aware. That's what I want you to become, self-aware, so you can check in with your bucket. What's going on for me at the moment? What's happening? Can I deal with that at the moment? Do I have those resources? Should I say no to my kids now taking up swimming and then cricket? And can I really manage this in my week already when it's so full on? You have to be really insightful and say, can I do this? So, because ultimately I want you to be able to look in that mirror and look at that confidence coming back at you and saying, you know what, you've got this. Because myself as a coach, I can give you content, I can give you some, sometimes advice, but you know what? You already have that in you. You have that. You have the answers. I may ask the question that you might not have thought about, but you have the answer and you'll give that to me. And I know I've got many, I call them probably my friends that I've met through my own journey through work, where they had limited self-confidence, and now they are amazing. They are amazing people, but they did that. And I know they might say, oh, Renee, it was you who inspired me. Hey, if I can do that, and then hope that you can do that for someone else, that's amazing. And if you can do that, I just get goosebumps when people say to me that, I've had, people come up to me years later and say, there's that difficult conversation when you said to me, Renee, that perhaps maybe do this first or do that. You got me to believe in myself. And that's where it starts. But how do you believe in yourself if you actually don't know who you are? And that's important, because we've got to learn about our identity. So that's what's in it for you. This is only a small, little tiny bit today, and it is about self. And then I've broken self up into some 4 parts as well. So can you imagine this? This is going to take us 12 months, but hey, by the end of it, you guys will be right on. So what we will really focus on is self. This is what we're going to focus on. Okay, so in your workbook, hopefully you all went to my web page or website if you hadn't already got the manual, because I was only be able to put a small size file on there and printed up the Discover What Drives You. Now, in the front of that, I didn't put page numbers. I'm so bad. So peacock. I'm so peacock. You get to learn that. You either love it or you hate it. So I've got what to expect from the workshop. So I know this isn't a workshop, but this is look at it as a program. What do you expect? Or you could actually say, what do you expect from my journey? That'd be another way to look at it. And, you can take this opportunity to pause this video and write down, what do you expect? Because then when we catch up in a live session, we can talk about that. And, you can say, Renee, well, I want to improve my self-confidence, or I want to improve my relationship with my kids. I want to learn not to lose it so often and get so angry with people. And, are these some of the things you want to work on? Or perhaps you just want to learn how to become self-aware. So write those things down. And what I also want you to do is just take this moment just to think about who you are and what makes you you. What are those qualities? I'm asking for good qualities because we all have the tendency to have, I shouldn't even have the word good. Sometimes I think I should just have qualities, because it's okay to be angry too, and this is about when we talk about emotions, that everyone puts such a bad thing, on those words, like, oh my God, angry is bad. No, it's not. If you're going to go and punch someone, then that's not good. But, it's okay to say that I'm feeling angry at the moment. So write down some good qualities about yourself. And, if you need a bit of time just to think about that, that's fine. And if you're really, really struggling, then ask your partner, ask a friend, what are some of the good qualities? Because it's something we don't always do too. Because if we're not really used to seeing it in ourselves, others can also tell you from their perception as well. So moving right along to self. Okay, now self, there's a lot. I used the bubble. Okay, but really what we're going to focus on is the mental part today, our lovely brain, because within self there's also the physical side, the emotional side, and the spiritual side. The spiritual side, or your purpose, your faith, your values, all those sort of things. But in the mental side, it's going to be looking at how we actually behave, how we may think, what things we do, our thought processes, and that to make up our mental. Because for many, many years ago, people used to believe that, we were sort of separated. It wasn't connected, the body and the brain and all that. I'm going back, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But it's amazing that little engine that sits up there, or the motor, that thinking machine, geez, how it can really, get you into trouble. And, you just go, wow, why do I think that way? What is it about me? So, we're going to look at that too, because environment's something that we'll touch on as well, but there's still, a lot of research against or for the nature and nurture, and, there's DNA, but you only have to look at your own if you have children, and obviously with the same partner. They've got the DNA from you and your partner, but they're all so different. And you just think, wow, they are too. What makes them different? What makes them different? So self. Have you ever had this moment where you're just pondering and just looking, and sometimes you can get in a little bit of a trance there, going, oh, who is that person? You know, so we start off with looking at our personality. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean for it to go our screen too quick then. So personality is, so this is the part we're going to look at, because everyone always talks about your personality. Well, actually, what is it? And obviously a quote there from Adams, 1954. I'm sure you can read that, so I don't need to read that out for you. But pretty much what it is looking at is your identity. You know, it starts off with, well, okay, well, who am I? What is my identity? You know, have I actually thought about that? And what makes you you? So your identity is all about your characteristics, your attributes, your knowledge, your skills, your ability. You know, you have your own awareness of your own physical being, like your body. That is your self-identity. Your identity as a young girl or boy many years ago is different to who you are now. So you've got the past identity versus the present, and then you've got the future. What is the future identity? So when we think about our self and identity, it's understanding a person has of themselves. So it's what you think of you as yourself. And that's a big question, because sometimes people don't take that time to just think about themselves. Then we have self-concepts. So this is the information that we don't necessarily know of ourselves, or the stuff that we might not like, but what others observe see. So people have a certain concept of self. So you may think, well, I'm like this, but perhaps someone else will think of you different. So it's how you see yourself from the outside. So it's more, it's like if anyone's read any Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, he talks about we're always very quick to think of us as two, you know, the one internally and outside that's looking in, when sometimes you think, well, you know, that's crazy. But having said that, if you sometimes you can remove yourself out to have a look, well, how did that behavior, how did that interaction go? You know, that's a bit about self-reflection there as well. So they're talking about that genre window, which is the, you know, that know yourself, the blind side and the hidden. And I'll put a lot more of that information up on the webpage as well. So it's a sense of self-worth and our capabilities as well. So here our concepts are, well, how worthy am I? And we know people that suffer with depression is that they believe that they're not worthy enough, and, you know, don't need to be loved, and find themselves quite isolated and don't want to be a burden. And, you know, we want that to be turned around so they do see themselves in a more positive light. But, you know, that is the challenge of depression as well. Because sometimes logically in that left side of your brain, you know that life is great and this is fantastic, but why aren't I feeling it? And look, and there's a lot of research around many things of connections and also chemicals as well. But for me personally, I will say that it is an individual case, but it's about a holistic approach to mental illness, you know, looking at everything, not just what you're presenting as symptoms, what else is going on for people in their life, what's happened, you know, any hormonal changes, you know, you do the physical workup. Because another misconception too is that, and I know for me personally, I'm anemic and I'm going in for a transfusion very soon because I'm very naughty, but, you know, tablets don't do anything for me. But I heard these fusions are fantastic. Imagine how much energy I will have. But it's, you know, it's anemic people are going to have the same symptoms of a classic depressed person. You know, I feel tired, I feel run down, I feel sluggish, I'm a little bit low, my mood's low. Do a blood test and you find out, oh, you know, you're anemic. It could be just you need a boost. So it's important that we treat individuals in a holistic view, because I think people can get very just focused on one thing. So the last one is self-confidence. It's a very hard thing to develop. If you're a peacock type personality, you got plenty of it, so your ego's taking over. Which sometimes is also a burden, you know, because you can be overconfident and then people think you're an idiot or you just show off because you're very much on the type of extrovert. But, you know, like I know myself, I try to practice to be introvert, but it don't always work. It's hard. I like people. I like to see what people, I'm very genuine about what people are up to and what they're doing. To me, I find that fascinating. That's one of those things I value, is curiosity is a value of mine. So in a nutshell, when we talk about self, you've got to look at identity concepts, and confidence makes up self, and what we term as personality. Now, personalities, I love them. It's fascinating. It fascinates the life out of me, but hence why I do what I do. But all we're going to talk about in the next probably 15 minutes, I'd say, of this session is going to be traits and type. So approaches to personality. Now, this is on from a psychological point of view, because obviously that's who researchers and psychologists and all psychiatrists study, this field of human behavior. But we're going to look at traits and types. And then in the next programs, we'll look at the psychoanalytical theories, behavior theories, and humanistic theories as well. And you'll find when you start looking at this stuff, you'll find, wow, a lot of psychologists work under the banner of behavioral theories, where they actually might use certain techniques that are very humanistic. And hopefully, if you're interested in that stuff, we can talk more about that. But what is a trait? So just take this moment, if you can, just pause this video, and in the book where you had written all your little, what you want to work on and your qualities, there's a blank page next to it. I want you to list me 10 of your traits. So when I say traits, and most people know, and it obviously has a definition there, but a trait is something that describes a person. So looking at their pattern of behavior. Okay, so what are some of your traits? All right, and we've already done a bit of those bird tests, so there were some traits in there. So, are you supportive? Are you approachable? Are you caring? Are you a hard worker? There are some of your traits. Are you good with people? Are you a good communicator, good listener? So do you tend to worry? There can be a trait. So look at some traits that really sort of stand out for you. And it'd be interesting to know when you do put your traits down, are they more in a positive line, or are they in a, so other traits could be, fun. And there are lots and lots of traits out there. In particular, one theorist who we'll get to it, came up with thousands and thousands of them. So just to the top of your head, write down some of your traits. Okay. Now, what are types? So when we talk about types, what we are referring to is still we're looking at traits, but we've grouped those traits into a certain type. Best way to explain it, because otherwise you'll just go, what? I'm confused. So remember, traits are characteristics, and they actually look at how we describe person's behavior, whereas many other theories or other areas look at how we examine someone's behavior when we're more about describing that behavior. So a type is then grabbing all of those and going, okay, well, we'll get, and you only have to think of what are the tests we've done recently. There are certain type, owl, dove, but within that identifies traits. So we've picked up the traits of an owl, analytical, what else? There's like routine, structure, time, all those. We've put it in a type and we've called them a owl, or we've called them the compliance under the DISC profile if you were to do that. So hopefully that in a nutshell has made that quite easy, traits and type. So you can write that down. Now, with any sort of education that I'm going to do, I also want to acknowledge a lot of the theorists behind their work, because that is the right thing to do. And it's also, it gives me some credibility that I haven't just gotten this off the Google and just, made this up. So we've got obviously a few down there under traits. So remember, trait is about looking at certain, describing characteristics of a person. So, back in the day of Allport, he came up with many. He was the one that came up with, I think I have the number written down here, was like, he broke them up into 3 areas of traits, where you had your cardinal, your central, and your secondary. So your cardinal, where you're like your real, to me, it describes more like values, but your central is what you might display to others. So, hard worker and, you're honest and all those things, whereas secondary might be things that you like. So you like to have a bit of fun and things like that. So that's his work. Then Cattell described many. He described over. He's the one that described a lot of the tests, a lot of the traits, and he also tried to categorize them. And he came up with the 16 personality factors test, which was, so see, once again, he came up with 16, but he probably then grouped them into like types. So see how they all start to go, oh yeah, that makes sense, Renee. And then, Eysenck, he came up with more on a scale, is that we have certain traits, but, you're either at one end of the scale. So like you're either introverted or extroverted. And then the more recent one is McRae and Costa, who have come up with the Oceans, the Big Five model it's called, but everyone calls it Ocean because when you're studying it in psych, you have to remember what they all stand for, and they actually spell Ocean. So openness, conscientious, I can't even say it, extrovism, and agreeableness, and neuroticism. I'm great with the words and speaking sometimes. They get a bit tired. So that's how you remember Ocean. So once again, certain traits that certain people have, if they've only got a certain two, like whether it's on the extrovert or the agreeableness, they're not necessarily going to be on the neurotic end of things as well. So I'll have all this information up as secondary notes so that you can really have a look more into it. But yeah, so pretty much he looks more at focusing on the different levels, the different types, not the broad. So more, the traits within. So back again, just to remind you again about self, it's what we perceive, feel, believe, and act, because that makes us who we are, ultimately what our behaviour is. You could think something, but you're not necessarily going to do it because there's other things that come into play. Then obviously for types, so some of you would have known, I guess what stands out there for a lot of you would be Myers-Briggs and Jung. So Carl Jung, who was one of the, worked in with Mr. Sigmund Freud many years ago and then moved away, didn't necessarily believe that people were predetermined as to what they were going to be. Sort of a bit more, I guess, on the humanist, that human behaviour was actually seen to be good-natured, whereas very psychodynamics is like, well, obviously there's tendencies unconsciously and subconsciously they're there, and then they come out and make us do certain behaviour. So, but we'll talk about that down the track when we do psychodynamic. So Myers-Briggs, that was a personality test. Once again, looking at type, remember there were the 4 areas. The first part, where do you get your energy? So are you extrovert or introvert? So most people that are extrovert are very happy to go out in the environment, source out people, where an introvert will be, I need a very quiet space just to channel myself and charge that. Number 2 part of that was, how do you process information? So are you censoring? So do you need facts that are tangible? I need to touch it, need to feel it, need to see it to make sure it happened. Or intuitive, which is the sixth sense, it just feels right or it feels wrong. How do you make decisions? So the thinking and the feeling. So remember, the thinking side is the logic side, like the Vulcan, whereas the feeling side's more, the emotion that comes out. So I think I used that example last time about an animal being hit by a car. The person that's straight out quite thinker, right, we've just got to do this, 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 and this. As for the person that's more feelings, like, oh, poor thing, I want to, that's in so much pain, feel really bad for it. I feel terrible that I've seen that. And my kids, how they feel, it's more of that emotive that comes out as well. And then the last part is, how do they actually form, how do they order your world? So is it judgmental, so decisive, planned, and outcome, or is there perception, which is more flexible and adaptable, curious, and open? So for me, I actually can deliver the Myers-Briggs. Haven't done them for years because it was many, many years ago I did this. And I'm an ENFP, which comes under like a guardian. So most are probably, and you can do that free online as well if you're curious. I've always loved Myers-Briggs. I find it just a very simple way to talk about, it's quite in depth, but a great way to look at personalities, because it just it's not locking you into a certain, wow, that's you, because you must be the bold and decisive person that has no emotions, which is so not true. It just means, that you're on a scale that you can be more towards introverted or more on the other end of extroverted. So that's what I like about Myers-Briggs. Obviously, another one, the type A, type B theory you might have heard about, which actually came from cardiologists, and that was Friedman and Roseman. So they came up with certain traits of a person are more likely to develop heart disease or have heart attack, whereas more traits within a type B are very laid back. So see how, once again, even though you've got the traits are in the type. It's just the type of being categorized, okay? So that's how, if you have any questions when you do this, please post them to me or send me something. I'm very happy to answer those. So I've probably gone through most of them for you already. Oops. And now I'm going backwards. Good, you're good, Renee. You're going to have to get the hang of this a bit more professionally, I think. So the personality tests that identify traits and theories, we've got DOPE, we've got DISC, Big Five, Model, Type A, Myers-Briggs, 16 PFs, that's personality factors, and many more. So just to test your knowledge, okay, so a word has come up, and I'm going to tell you it's a type, okay, so relationship, right? So a relationship, someone, so now I'm going to say some traits. So very caring, kind, wants people to come together, nurturing, very soft, avoid the conflict. Who would I be talking about? We just did this test. What bird would I be talking about? I'm sure you all just said the dove. So like the dove, when you did that questionnaire or test online, you would have certain questions that were asked in relation to, well, do you like this or do you like that? Do you prefer quietness? Do you not? So once again, it's looking at the traits, but putting you into a type. So the DOPE test is a free online test, and Gary Coltrell was the guy that sort of developed it from, I guess he took his, he looked at the DISC profile, so that looks at the dominant, influential, steady, and compliance, and he thought, oh, okay, let's make this a little bit more simple, because the DISC, there's a lot of stuff in the DISC, but the more and more personality tests I've read, I can see the four temperate, there's even back to the Greek times. Back in BC, they looked at, someone that was hot to someone that was cold. I mean, that's how they used to describe, the temperament of people. So you can see it all back and how it's all now coming forward. Like you can see the same principles there. So I'm going to throw another one up there. So the organizer, okay, think of the organizer. Okay, systems, to-do lists, time, doesn't like spelling mistakes, to-do lists. Are you saying the owl? Yes, you are, because it is. It's the owl. Correct. Okay. Another one, the fun and energetic person, high energy. Okay, someone that talks a lot, good with people, they're fun, they're humorous, they like to get people to come together. They can be a little bit spontaneous. They can also not pay attention to detail, all these different traits that will come out about them. They're the peacock, okay? Obviously, if you remember the last but not least, and we did talk about him in the last live session, was the bold and direct. So very much decisive, say it how it is, can seen as quite cold. These are some of the traits that I'm explaining, and we put them all together and we come up with an eagle. And this is where people will say, it's interesting because I am very direct and straight to a point, but I'm also caring. So you could be between like an eagle and the dove, and that's fine, because we just got over talking about traits. There are thousands of traits. Why can't you have all of them? It doesn't mean that you fit into one little square box. It's just that this is why we came up with types, because there is a certain group of people that have a certain connection, let's say, of these, similarities of traits, but no individual is the same. You only have to look at your children, as I said. So what does that say about us? We are all unique and we are all different. And this is why we need to get to know people instead of, right, I've just done that. I mean, I've been doing these for years, and I can pick up traits, as I like to say it, or I can pick up our tendencies. I call them tendencies. I say, oh, you've got our tendencies, or there's your dove talking. Like I talk as if you've already got all these four birds in you, and when you're interacting, that's what's coming out. Like, wow, have someone's having a great time. Oh, look, the peacock's out. Where's that peacock? Because they're all there. And the Myers-Briggs is the same too. We all have these, we have these types within. It's just that where we feel comfortable to use them, which goes back again to self and confidence. In a situation, you can be quite outgoing because you are with people you know. So, of course, you feel secure and you feel safe. So, you're going to be like that. But if you're then with people you don't know, you might not display those traits. Doesn't mean that you don't have them. It's just that you're not comfortable at them. And you have to watch kids. Kids try I'm going to be extroverted. Oh, that didn't work for me. Or something happens to them where their confidence gets just shot down, that they go, oh, I'm not going to do that because last time I did that, I got shot down. And that can happen in a workplace where you go, you know what, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say something. And then you get shot down for it. So you learn, and this is when we talk about behaviorists, you learn to go, well, what was the point of doing that? So see how this all makes sense? You're liking this, aren't you? Because it's really interesting stuff. So that concludes, I guess, talk about traits and theories. So I just want to show you a quick little video first. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully you hear me just having a drink of water there. Um, so it's just, it puts a little bit of a, a bit of a funny side of it as well. So when it's talking about the D, it is referring to the eagle. And I'm sure that out of all the 50 million videos I've done now, most of you are like, oh yeah, I think I'm all over the birds now because I keep harping on about them. And then we had our I, which is your peacock, very influential. Then you had the steady, which is just want to go with the status quo, and, very kind and caring. And then the last but not least, the numbers guy or the lady is the C, which is the owl, the compliance. So you can see where the dope test came from, which is pretty much a spin off that test. But, it just gives you a bit of an insight straight up because we are doing self. And the first part to look at self always comes up is personality. Where does personality come from? Well, lots of research out there. But what we're going to talk about are the 4 approaches to personality. And I think the first one we've already done is the trait and theory part. So, sorry, trait and type. But when I ask you, describe the characteristics of a person looking at their behavior, is that a trait or a type? I'm sure you said to me, it's a trait, Renee, which is fantastic. Now, if you refer to the psychological classification of the different types of people, so these are the observed characteristics in people. So remember taking the traits and putting them in a group and going, that's the owl, that's the peacock, because they all have these similar, that would be called a type. That is correct. So the trait and type theory is the first approach to, the personality approach or the approaches to personalities. So that is one way of looking at personality, is looking at the traits and type. So we all have traits, whether you call them qualities. To me, it's very different from values because traits is more on a behavior side. It's what we actually do. Whereas value is something within, something that you cherish, something that you find very important. It's like a belief system. It's something you could be vocal about, like you can with your values, but traits is more like something you can see someone do. So you can see someone having fun. You can see someone working hard. You can see the person that's coming late. You can see the person that talks a lot. Does this all make sense? You can see this stuff. So whether you want to, for the purpose, I guess, of this, presentation, we're referring them to traits, but other people can also say their qualities or their characteristics. So there's certain things, I guess, that people have that if you probably look at your partner and think he or she, God, that bugs the crap out of me because they do a certain thing that, but then that's a part of you love them as well because of it. So we all have these certain things that we carry with us. So hopefully you got a lot out of that particular presentation. It's one of many. So, you may need to go back and have a look at these things as well. But the idea is after we cover off on the 4 areas within the mental part of self, I will do a Zoom session because that's how I'm going to try and just catch up with everyone, make sure we're all on the right track here. And I spelt personality wrong and I've just noticed that myself. How bad is that? And look, the owl came out. So I'll fix that before. So in closing, we have spoken about self and looked at personality, missing the L, discovering traits and type. So next session we'll be looking at the psychoanalytical theory. So that's my favorite, Mr. Freud Sigmund. I love him. A lot of people hate him, but why do we still keep talking about him? Because some of his stuff is actually quite, a lot of it's been hard to be tested, but some of his stuff, it's a bit like, I guess, Myers-Briggs talking about intuition. There's some things where you go, yeah, I get that. I can't, put the concrete, evidence around it, and I guess that's why a lot of people are a bit out sometimes on ACT therapy, acceptance commitment, especially a lot of psychs, because I think there's no empirical evidence around it, which there is, you know. And then I'm doing research at the moment at uni, and I find, yeah, but I can look at a certain type and group of people, and that there's my evidence. So interesting stuff. But anyway, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and I look forward to any comments. And yes, there is a spelling mistake, and I do apologise for that, but just want to actually test if you were noticing that. So thank you for listening, and please join me for the next session. See you guys later. Bye.